I'd like to welcome you all to tonight's event, Harbour of Hope, a special evening celebrating Sweden's diverse cultures. My name is Amir Eshel. I'm the director of the Europe Center at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies. It's a great pleasure and an honor to welcome you all. I'd like to extend a special welcome to our guests for tonight's event, the filmmaker Magnus Gertten, and the artist and director of Malmö's Cultural Center, and I hope I pronounced it correctly, Mariska Paviljongen. Well, yeah? Okay. And the name of the director is Ozan Sunar. Before handing over the stage to my colleague, Dr. Roland Schuh, who was really the spirit behind tonight's event, I'd like to express much gratitude to the Barbara Osher Pro Suecia Foundation, which helps us a lot at the Europe Center to put together programs like tonight's event. The foundation also supports our program on Sweden, Scandinavia, and the Baltic region, and without the foundation's help, a lot of things would not have been possible. Special thanks go also to Europe Center's Program and Fellowship Coordinator, Ms. Karen Haley, who's over there all the way in the back. Karen has done an amazing job, again, putting together tonight's event. The actual presentation or introduction to tonight's event will be given by my dear colleague, Dr. Roland Schuh. Roland has been working on issues of ethnicity, diversity, and identity in Europe for a decade now. He's a wonderful scholar on this field, and it's only natural that he's the spirit, the intellectual, the conceptual spirit behind today's event. And Roland will introduce us to the different sections of tonight's event. Roland.
Thank you very much, Amir. And I join in welcoming you to tonight's special event. I'll speak very briefly because I know we want to get to the highlights, especially our guests tonight. This evening we gather for a special look at the challenge to meet and embrace difference, to put it in a nutshell. In today's globalized world, market economies and educational opportunities on the one hand, but also war and persecution, send unprecedented numbers of people across borders, away from home cultures, and into new host neighborhoods. In the US and in Europe, we share the concern and opportunity to learn what drives people far from home. Tonight, we focus our gaze on the city of Malmö, a city whose neighborhoods contain extraordinary diversity. Such diversity has a history, which we will see in film, and it has a future, thanks in large part to the cultural programming we will learn about after this film. Our challenge is to learn from the experience of families, fathers, brothers, mothers, sisters, and children, displaced from the familiar and replaced in new settings. We will look at this challenge through the eyes of two visionary artists who were kind enough to join us all the way across the Atlantic, who have touched us with their works and who are bridging divides across competing memories and across growing diversity of today's mobile and global West. To begin, Magnus Gertten is one of today's leading documentary filmmakers. The list of his films that he has directed, produced, and written the screenplays for is voluminous. And in fact, I believe he's at work on a next film that will take him to Nicaragua. Maybe we'll find out a little more about that in the informal time at the end. Perhaps we can get him to say a few words about that. I'll highlight two films from his oeuvre especially relevant to the themes that we're highlighting at the Europe Center, as Professor Eshel mentioned. Gertten's Rolling Like a Stone from 2005, like many of his works, gathers unassuming characters, aging Swedish rock band members, to make poignant statements on modern existence and memory. It's been compared in the New York Times Review to no less than the film by Alain Resnais, Hiroshima, Mon Amour. In Long Distance Love, Gertten turns his documentary gaze on contemporary Kyrgyzstan, and with a portrait of a newlywed couple, he reveals the complexity of life and generational expectations in the former Soviet Republic, and among the multitudes of migrant laborers arriving on the streets of Moscow. Among the many words of praise in review of Gerten's film, and I end with this, there is a phrase that aptly sums up the theme tonight. Quote, "It seems as if the past is intruding on and sometimes overwhelming the present." I think this is what we'll see in this film. So we'll screen this and then move to the next section. I hope you're as moved as I am by the film every time I see it. As the reviewer says, it seems as if the past is intruding on and sometimes overwhelming the present. I'd like to get actually both of our guests in on the conversation. So before I call our director of this exquisite piece to the stage, I'd like to bring Ozan Sunar also onto the conversation. Because as we continue to look at diversity, I'm very intrigued to look at how another visionary artist gives it a future. Ozan Sunar has a long career in the field of arts, media, and integration politics. In '93, he started the first cultural festival in Europe, focusing on the Middle East. He has served as a political advisor to the Minister of the Interior and was commissioning editor of arts and documentaries for the Swedish Public Television Services Company. He was born in Turkey and emigrated to Sweden with his family in the 1970s, and he studied at University of Uppsala and University of Stockholm. We have special guests from both today. Currently, he's the founding and artistic director, as Professor Eschel says, of the International Cultural House, Mariska Paviljongen in Malmö. And I think we may see in his presentation today on his programming, the past not overwhelming the present, but instead the present clearing a way for the future. Ozan?
Thank you very much. Really honored to be here. It's difficult to take over after this film without any break, but I will do my best. Yeah. I catch a cold when I came to San Francisco, so you have to excuse me. I have all this with me. Well, I was about, this is from the opening night in Mariska Paviljongen 2 years ago. I was about this years old when I came to Sweden from Turkey. To Sweden, which at that time, at the beginning of the 70s, the Turks was, you know, in the bottom level of the symbolic hierarchy in the playground, in the schoolyard, and so on. It was the Turkish and the gypsies, Roman gypsies in Turkey. Then the Greeks was a little bit better, and then it was the Yugoslavian, and then Italian, and then it was the Swedes. About 20 years later, okay, now, about 20 years later, I started a festival, Reorient Festival, in Stockholm, focusing on culture from Middle East. It was Muslim culture, Christian culture, Jewish cultures from the Middle East, and it was, the reason was that I was very tired on this very dark and you know, cliché view of the Turks and Arabs and Middle East. It was a cultural festival. We played a lot of the clichés, and here you can see, if you look quite clear or near, you could see that we are playing with identity with Siw Malmkvist, if you know her. She's one of the most Swedish actors in Sweden. So I asked her, could you please, you know, be the model for our poster. This was '96, and then we had Povel Ramel, and we had Rolf Lassgård, we had familjen Svensson, and so on. So we had a lot of the great artists at the posters. And for me, it was a starting point to try to understand how we could deal, how we deal with this thing to be stigmatized in a society, and how we could try to escape from that somehow. Anyhow, Malmö. I have 20 minutes, so I have to be a bit fast now. 3 years ago, I was asked from the city of Malmö to come down to Malmö. They said that we have problems. We put a lot of money to the infrastructure of the city, but we have problem that our minorities and majorities don't meet. They don't have any connection. We have great problems. You know, this is the image that a lot of us like and want to see as Malmö today. It's a city with big trust in the future, bridge to Copenhagen, omnipotent buildings, omnipotent football players, and so on. And this is one of the media pictures that we have, images that we have on Malmö. And this is true. It's a very interesting city, but there is paradoxes. The other side is like this. Crime and gangs and murders and robberies and a big tension between different groups in the society. So there's a lot of people dealing with these paradoxes. Today, it's about 40% of the population in Malmö have immigrant background. And immigrant background in the Swedish statistic is that you're either born outside Sweden or you have parents born outside. So in some years, Malmö will be one of the first minority-majority cities in Scandinavia. So soon it will be 50-50 minorities and 50-50 or Swedish origins. At the same time, the other paradox is that, or paradox, it's kind of connected. The Nationalist Party, Sverigedemokraterna, is one of the third biggest parties now in Malmö and Skåne region, and they are growing. So, how should we deal with this city? A lot of people is working with this. I'm coming from the cultural part. The question that they asked me, we have a building here in the middle of the city, could you find some way to use this building and to connect people and minorities? One of the problems that we have in Malmö, that this is the part, as you see, with a lot of, this is the richer part, middle class and upper middle class. All these venues, cultural venues and public areas is on this part, and we have the opera and the concert hall, and we have theaters, etc., etc. On the other side of the city, they have this minority clubs or minority places. One of the problems that we see in this kind of divided city is that it is a kind of result of a very clear immigration politics that, or integration or immigrant politics that started at the 70s. And I think that is one of the great problem and the starting point of a very clear divided communities in Sweden. And in Malmö, they managed to do it very, very exact, this politics. The thing is that when, in the 70s, when the immigrants came to Sweden, the way to organize and to be representative in the society, it was to build a kind of immigrant societies or immigrant NGOs. So the state and the city, They said that, okay, do you have a flag or some ethnicity? Yes. What are you? I'm Turk, okay, or Kurd or whatever. Then they say, okay, you have to build a kind of NGO. We'll give you some money, and we'll give you some place to do your culture or whatever you want to do with your identity, you know. And this was the places popping up everywhere in this very poor industry area. And the interesting thing, it was not the kind of a bad idea to do this kind of actions, but the problem was that you could somehow conservate and you know, create kind of small ghettos outside the main established area. If you look at this, you had this old purpose-built buildings that it was crystals and red carpets and so on. And you could continue with the culture and your aesthetics and your preferences. And the other one was in a kind of another part of the city, dealing with themselves. And when new people came, immigrated to these minorities, they came into this small separated and divided ghettos. Could I please have a little bit of water, please? Thank you, Karen. Anyhow, the thing that I try to understand what the City of Malmö asked. Thank you very much. It took some time to understand, but they said, could you help us with this different thing, the difficult thing? And I said, what is the difficult thing? It's that people don't meet. We can't connect people. We are building a lot of streets and lightings and trees, and we are putting millions of money on these balconies and painting the buildings and everything, but it don't work. So we tried to do one thing. They had a place called the Moorish Pavilion, and this is a very paradoxical thing, and that was I fall in love in this crazy building. It's a kind of a, mosque like with 6-7 minarets. You can't build these things in Europe today. But it's from 1902. The architect is a Polish Jewish architect called, his name was Aaron Krzyzewski. He liked the Moorish ideas, and he tried to do kind of a fantasy of the Oriental stuff. And this building was the first. One of the first buildings that was built by the working class movement in Sweden. And it was a place that they had to self-organize the workers and control their drinkings, because there was a lot of drinkings at that time. And they tried to have not the bourgeoisie place, but it's something completely different. And they find this the idea from Aaron to build a crazy Oriental mosque, party mosque in Malmö. So that was the thing that they offered me, and they said that, well, you have to invest all the techniques and all the stuff that you need. We could give you some money for the programmation, but you have to rent this house private. So you have to invest all the money if you can. And that was a very, very interesting challenge, because the first time I could go into one of the major places in a city like Malmö without being employed by the city or by the states. And this is quite unique thing in Sweden. And dangerous thing, of course. But anyhow, the thing we tried to do here was to reconstruct the idea of the Greek meeting place, or the fantasy of the meeting place, that we could have, you know, a place that could really engage a lot of people in a society. A fantasy of a place that you could do politics, erotics, art, debates, parties, everything that you are interested in a society. Could we try to build a place today and re-invite the house of culture? So for me it was kind of a social experiment to try to do something that we had tried to done it in the older democracies, a place that you could meet in a public room. The problem that we have in the 19th centuries or the last 100 years is that we build these buildings we cut the sausage in a very special way. We have the opera just for the opera and opera lovers. We have the jazz club for the jazz. We have the theater for the theater lovers. We have the library. We have this and that. And that makes that it's more difficult to coordinate, you know, because we like a lot of different things, but it's a lot of class matters and other things. We try to cut the sausage on a completely paradoxal and crazy way. It's no secret, you know, how we try to do, but we are connected. We try to connect a lot of minorities and ask them, what would you like to do in a house like this? And we have a lot of answers, and we try to realize it. It's very simple. And we do it with, you know, to avoid to be a ghetto for immigrants, which is the first mistake you can do. You think that, yeah, we will do a kind of new venue, and you do it for immigrants, and then everybody say, okay, this is the immigrant place. And the thing is that the big problem that I understand that we live and struggle with is the problem of stigma. As an immigrant, you struggle with the stigma as itself, but also that you are living in whole life in places which are stigmatized. You start with the police control in the harbor. Then you have this asylum center, which is also stigmatized. And then you have some flat or something in a place that nobody wants to live. That stigmatized place. And then you go to try to get some work in place that nobody wants to go because you don't want to be without work. But when you go that, they're also stigmatized. Even, you know, the place like, I will not say the synagogue, but in Malmö or Sweden, the mosque is a stigmatized place. Not for yourself or your belief, but in the society, mosque is a stigmatized place. So all your life, you live in this kind of very, very stigmatized place. So the first thing is to do is to create a place which the minorities could identify themselves with, and which is not stigmatized. And the only way to do it is to gain the heart of the majority. The majority have to love the place, which means that we start, when we are reaching the minorities and subcultures, we start with to try to please the majority, and became a place that the majority love. We do concerts, we do theater and stage art. One of the thing we have here is a play from the Turkish, the Istanbul City Theater, which is the first time they came to Malmö, and we had, of course, 99% Turkish speaking in this play, in the audience. But everybody was surprised. Wow, how could this happen? You have this Turkish play. And we have a big theater, city theater, who have been working in about very long time. And they don't do this kind of stuff. When they try to reach the Turkish minority, for example, they try to do some 1001 Night with, you know, Shakespeare with some turban or something, in an idea that, this will, you know, make some kind of identification with the minorities. We have debates, discussions. We had the audition with Ilmar Reepalu, who was the major. He was about this his different kind of statement around the Jewish population in Malmö. We connect the Swedish radio and television and have broadcasts from this kind of hearings. This nobody does today in Malmö. There is a kind of a scareness. I know some of you are from Malmö, but there is a kind of scareness to open up and discuss things, and the level, I think, should be higher in a city. Another very important things that we do, maybe this is the first thing we start with, parties and holidays. To go into the discussions and debates on and democratic projects, we wait with that and we start with party, because that's the also way to open up a kind of identification with the address. We are trying to building up address. This is from some of our events. Children and youth, of course, most important things that we have. This gang that you see, I should maybe make a kind of personal reflection on that. It started when we started 2 years ago, open up the house. The first thing that happened was that it was about 6-7 kids around 14, 15 years old who went in and stole things from the restaurants, abused our guests, thrown stone to the windows and so on. And after a while, I went out some weeks later and said that, what are you doing? You know, you're destroying things that we are trying to build up. Why do you do this? They said, who are you? I'm Ozan, and I'm owner of this place. You're lying. No, I'm not. Are you really owner here? Yeah. Are you from Turkey? Yeah, I'm from Turkey. Then we started the dialogue. And I said, why do you do this thing? They said, we would like to work here. I want to work here. I said, you want to work here? You have to start to, you know, pick up these things that you destroy, and you have to go to the school and so on. And they said, okay, when can we start? You know, how much do I get in salary? I said, okay, man, you have to work first and so on. So that we started dialogue. They said after that half an hour, they said, could you call me my mother and say that I have a job? No, you don't have any job yet, you know. You have to. Anyhow, this story started a process that we had connection with the school, with the parents, with the police, with the social services and every service that you can imagine, who put a lot of money to this destructive sides of Malmö. And we had a workshop paid by the city. It was about 18 persons from the society who tried to build up a model. And we started a kind of school for young producers, producers. So we mixed this criminal, semi-criminal young people with other people who was more disciplined from the school, and they are now doing our young programming for the youngs in summer vacations and Eastern vacations, etc., etc. So it's a very pragmatic way to explain how we try to get into the society and involve people. And the secret things, everybody was, how could you do this? Because this is crazy people, you know, they are going to jail in some years. Yeah, and I said, okay, we had them outside the house, and I saw that they will grow up and be like, you know, the Ferdinand, the bull. And I say it's better to have them inside, on our side. So the thing was that we spoke with them. We tried to just, you know, respond to them, and they didn't believe themselves, because in the adult world they have been so what you say, svikna, betrayed again and again from the adult world. Local and regional networking is one of the parts that we have. We have to have a critical mass of migrant societies. We work a lot with the big Bosnian society, Arab society, Arab-speaking, Persian, Jewish society, smaller, the Turkish society, Latin society, etc., etc., Roman society, and the subcultures of Swedish. It's, for example, jazz musicians are a subculture in Malmö. We are very, you know, we need them. Hard rockers and yeah, there's different kind of crazy subcultures that we embrace. This is our mentor program. We're trying to raise up new young producers in the field of culture. Very happy people, as you see. Educational programs for children and parents. All these things is, you know, it's nothing new, actually. It is nothing new. But we have quite big democracy project that we do, and empowerment projects. Invite a lot of people from Middle East and from Malmö, and the next step is try to also see how we could work with the Jewish and the Muslim Arab community. All the things that is very difficult we are trying to get into. Everything that you are scared of is the place to be somehow, I think, in a society like this. Hugo Grotius, the old Natura, you know, one of the philosophers, he asked the question: how should we live together in Europe in the wars? How should we live together if you don't believe in same God, or if you don't believe in same idea of what's the best? And it was about 400 years ago that he was trying to deal with that. And still we are dealing with the same question. How should we do to construct a society that people could be involved and being seen? However, 500 events, 2012. It's tremendously much. My colleagues are about 150,000 visitors, which means that we are now, after 2 years, one of the biggest venues in whole South Sweden. I will show you a short piece, not things that we did ourselves, but this was the first thing I saw at YouTube the day after that we opened up. And this is just to give you a kind of a feeling and the energy of the place. It is a local TV station, a Caribbean guy that went to.
Caminhando contra o vento, sem lenço, sem documento.
This is Koanuka one more time. I'm here at Moriskan Pavilion in Malmö, Folkets Park. It's a really great event with many persons from different cultures. Really interesting. I'll be happy to show you what I've seen here. Really nice event. Yeah, my friends. Ita!
Welcome to Moriskan.
Friends, I'm here with Albin. He's responsible for the communication here. And Albin, what's the message you want to pass for the new visitors here in the local?
I hope they love the house, because we do, and I hope these people who are here everywhere around us, that they come back every night from now on, because I'm in love with the house and with the, well, for me it's like a magical place, and I hope other people sense that as well. So I hope that's the feeling they bring with them home, that they want to get back here over and over again.
I am really impressed. It's such a really awesome feeling at this place. So much energy and so much music and really good people.
Really nice place. It's really beautiful. It's top notch.
Two great bands playing here this summer. The first one is an electronic Swedish band based in Malmö called Lur. And the other one is also an experimental post-rock band called Ved. So that's two good reasons to come here this summer.
I think it's great. Yeah, a nice 1920s structure. Yeah, I like the vibe.
It's just amazing. It's when you walk in the doors, it's just you're struck by how many people you know. Everyone is here. Everyone wants to be here. Everyone feels like this is home. This is where culture and life happens in Malmö.
Thank you. Well, it was the first day, and we had a very good response from the public, and politicians and other was then that they said that this is the first time we see so mixed people in under one roof. It was Turks, Arab, Jews, Romans, Swedes, hipsters, and so on. And it was like a surprise that this could happen, But it is not so strange. It is not so märkvärdigt, as we say in Swedish. It's I think I will stop there, and we could continue maybe after also. Magnus Gertten.
There. No, I didn't have a scarf on. I thought it was me. I would have been with my mother anyway, so if I see her, then I'll see me.
Här är min mamma. Hon berättade ju att jag föddes i lägret. Och hade vi varit kvar där en vecka till, då hade varken hon eller jag levt.
Jag var ju nere i båtarna. Och den synen glömmer man ju aldrig. Man trodde ju inte det var sant från början. Samtidigt såg man oerhört tacksam i deras blickar, det minns jag. Det här, är vi verkligen ifrån detta? Är vi verkligen rädda?
There were a lot of things I didn't remember. But when I said to her, how come I don't remember this or that? She'd look at me and she'd say, I'm not going to talk to you about the war. Think of happy things. Think about Sweden.
Jag funderade och funderade. Det var en sån här känsla. Pappa, han är nog inte min riktiga pappa. Men hon bara slog det ifrån sig.
Jag fick då kontakt med en kille där som hon blev god vän med. Han var ju bara en liten pojke när han kom in i koncentrationslägret. Men han överlevde. Varför han överlevde, det vet jag inte. Men föräldrar och syskon allihop var borta. J.O. Rosenberg från Polen står det.
There's my mother. This one in the front. Oh my God. And that's me. Yeah, that's me.
Hi, my name is Hassam Moqtadir. I'm from Iran. I hear that's part of your presentation that there were some minorities. I was just wondering how is specific way of life, specifically for different groups of minorities who, according to you, live together and they are assimilating themselves within Swedish culture.
I couldn't really, the last thing, I didn't hear exactly the last.
No, I was just trying to get a little bit more input in terms of your presentation, how these minorities get along with one another in terms of assimilation with the Jewish people, I mean with the Swedish people, and at the same time Swedish culture.
Yeah, actually it's, you know, what I see in Stockholm and the difference from Malmö, when you need a kind of critical mass of middle class in one minority, it's a kind of engine. When the middle class is working, the children are going to the universities and schools, and then it became a kind of assimilation or double identity. You could work in or you have a Swedish working identity, and you have your own identity who works. In Malmö, it's more working class, and it's the middle class you have in the Persian and Latin Americans, because they was quite educated when they came. It was urban. When you come from the rural parts of the world and you don't have any education, it takes more time. But when we look at the statistic and so on, you see after 30 years, 35, 40 years, the minority group became in the same you know, economic status and economic development and as the majority Swedes. So it's depending on, you know, it's a conflict between the urban, modern, educated world contra the rural, patriarchal, uneducated groups. And it's the same in the suburbs of Istanbul or Ankara, but they are not immigrant, they are from Turkey, but the same structure that you see around the big cities, you see in the cities of all the Europe and all the world. And you could be, yeah.
stigma that you were referring as part of your presentation, that there is this degree of stigma, and where
Yes.
does that fall within this? That's one of my sub-question, and one of the most minority groups, from what I can think of, would be the Jewish people, and how are the life
Yeah.
for the Jewish people at the same time versus all of these other groups that the country or maybe other minorities consider themselves to
Yeah.
be some kind of a sigma type, I don't know, immigrant that they still want to get themselves to be part of Swedish culture. Because as you were indicating as part of your presentation,
Yeah.
they come from different backgrounds. So how do these backgrounds become some kind of an influence in terms of becoming very similar to Swedish people?
Yeah, Magnus, would you like to? Yeah?
Well,
Please.
I'm the filmmaker. But I've been living in Malmö my whole life. So, I mean, Malmö is very, to me, I'm proud of my city. But I can also see the problems of living in a city that is very much like the big cities in Europe. We have a lot of immigrants, and we have the good ideas of how to bring them together. Because in Malmö, it's a small city, so people meet. In Stockholm, it's a rich city. Everyone that are of immigrant background, they are living outside the city in a way. But in Malmö, they meet. And for instance, you know, I've been traveling around with my film all over the world, and in San Francisco, I was there last year, and in Jerusalem. And because after the film, you get questions, and the first questions in both cases was, what about the anti-Semitism in Malmö? That was the first question I got. And there's a lot to say about that. And the first thing is that there is not Nazis walking on the streets of Malmö. It's something else. And my answer would be that it's the Middle East conflict transferred to Malmö, a city where people meet in a very clear way. It's not a big city. So, and I've been talking a lot to the Jewish community about what's happening. I've been making some speeches at the synagogue to support this minority as well. And what is happening is that it's the young Arab kids coming from the poor areas of Malmö. They are harassing parts of the Jewish community. That is what is happening. It's a shame, but it's, in a way, I think it's important to understand what it is. It's a transfer of the conflict. And we have to deal with that, and that is what we are doing in Malmö, with creating dialogue forums. And there is definitely, I think, opportunities to do something about it, definitely. That was a long explanation. I don't know if I answered anything that you were asking.
So I have a question to both of you, and the question is the question of motivation. Could you say something about, Magnus, what motivated you to do this movie? And you, Ozan, what motivated you as an artist to get involved into that type of work?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not doing a film because it's just important. I know my film is important. It's about some of the worst crimes in modern history. It's about humanity, about taking care of helping people, and it's also a modern Swedish history. This is the starting point for when Sweden started the modern immigration policy. Sweden opened up. That's what we've been seeing in this film. But that was not why I did the film. And then I have to blame my father, because my father was standing in the harbor. He was 14 years old. He was standing in the harbor in April 1945, and he was seeing all the ships coming in. And that meant a lot to him. And he has been urging me to do this film for 15 years. And I said, as if your father tells you to do film, you don't want to do that film, of course. But then we found this magical pictures, and he is also an amateur historical researcher, so he helped me in finding some of the people there. So that was how I ended up with this film. And at one point, my father actually thought he was the director of the film. And I had to tell him that, sorry, you're not. But I'm very grateful to him, absolutely. So that's why I ended up in this film. And I have to have this personal connection to my film. But then I have to do an important film as well, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm still dealing with the kind of identity questions, how to live within myself as a dualist, as a Western semi-Christian guy with a Muslim background, as a kind of a Turkish Middle East background, Orientalist, Occidental, you know, dealing with some of my own identity things. And I'm interested actually also to understand this question around the stigmas and how we could live together, how we build cities and plan our societies. So connection with both my very private questions and the kind of political stuff. And if you want to really understand Sweden today, Malmö is the place to be, because what we will see in Malmö, I'm afraid we will also come over the rest of the Sweden.
Can I add? As I'm here, I need to promote my next film actually, and it has to do with the film you've seen, because when I was at the screening in Jerusalem, where I got all these tough questions afterwards about anti-Semitism and why is the film not Jewish enough, and that was tough audience, good questions. But at the end of that screening, there was a little lady, an old lady, who raised her hand and said, "Excuse me, I just want to say, you see in your archive footage, you see a little girl standing there. She just came off the ship, and she's standing there with a blanket in her hand. I don't know if you saw that picture in the film. I just want to say, it's me." So that was a magical moment and the starting point of the project that I'm doing right now, because I'm going through this archive footage, this film reel, and I'm going to do, if I would talk like Facebook language, I would tag the film. I want to put names to the faces, because if people are anonymous, if they don't have any names, we don't connect to them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm traveling around meeting people that you see in that film, and I think that's a good motto as well, to put names to the faces. So watch out for the film.
Please join me in thanking our guests.